Welcome to Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup. I'm your host, Jason Bland, and tonight we have guests returning, Chad and Alta Diller, talking about their book, Orbducted, in the French Quarter. This happened back in 1997. There's a lot more than just this incident. We talked about it, I think it was about a month ago we had them on, and we talked about the high strangeness in their lives that led them together, UFO sightings, strange events, and then this major event that happened in 1997 down in New Orleans in the French Quarter, where they were abducted by an orb. And it's really interesting. I have so many intricacies to this story, so much high strangeness that I wanted to bring them back on. We're going to take off kind of right back where they got abducted and get more into detail what happened that night, because there's just so much, like I said, high strangeness with us. And you guys can call in after the second half of the show on our two Skype lines. Their Skype IDs are Soup Live Chat 800 Live Chat, or the audio only line is OOJBland00. You can call in, but that'll be after the second half of the show to ask your questions. All right, guys, like we like to do every Sunday night is World Wide Web of Weird, so we'll have that for you as well, and we'll be with you in just one sec. Welcome back to another Sunday night of Paranormal Soup. I'm your host, Jason Bland, and we should have my lovely co-host with us tonight as well, Jamie D. How you doing tonight, Jamie?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Glad to have Chad and Alta back. It's awesome to get to talk to them more. They had so many cool stories. I mean, we had UFOs, aliens, werewolf, and we only touched little bits of each of those stories, so I want to get a little more detail tonight, especially about the abduction. I mean, just so many interesting stories. I mean, they lived in a voodoo temple. I mean, just so much interesting stuff. And of course, running the World Wide Web of Weird for us tonight is Mr. Jeffrey Chan himself. How you doing tonight, Jeff?
Doing good.
Doing good. All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and roll into the World Wide Web of Weird?
I think you're locked.
Tonight in the World Wide Web of Weird, last week we had this story about Maui vampire scare. Well, now the story's got more to tell. This comes from theguardian.com. UN moves staff after mobs kill 5 in Maui vampire scare. Vampires, really? Okay, let me get the share screen up here. So people are listening on Late Night in the Midlands radio network. You can see these videos and articles and that later. I'm going to start posting the articles and the video link when I put the World Wide Web of Weird up, usually a couple days afterwards on the Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup Facebook page. That's a mouthful. I will put the World Wide Web of Weird up. I'm going to start putting the articles so you can find the articles. But you can watch the videos later on if you're just listening tonight, if you're interested. You also go to our Paranormal Soup YouTube channel and find a World Wide Web a Weird playlist, and some of the videos are in there as well. Okay, so tonight, UN moves staff after mobs kill 5 in Maui vampire scare. United Nations has pulled staff out of 2 districts in northern Maui, where a vampire scare has triggered mob violence when at least 5 people have been killed. Belief in witchcraft is widespread in rural Maui, one of the world's poorest countries, where many aid agencies and NGOs work. A state of vigilante violence linked to vampire rumors also erupted in Maui in 2002. These districts have severely been affected by the ongoing stories of blood-sucking and possibly the existence of vampires. The UN Department of Safety and Security said in the security report on the Flombi and Majani, I totally butchered that, districts that we've seen by Reuters. The acting UN resident coordinator Florence Roll said in an email response to questions that based on the report, some UN staff have relocated while others are still in the district depending on locations of their operations. The UNDSS is continuing to monitor the situation closely to ensure all affected UN staff are back in the field as soon as possible, Rawl said. Rawl did not say how many workers have been relocated. The UNDSS report said at least 5 people had been killed in the area since mid-September by lynch mobs accusing them of vampirism. It said mobs searching for vampires have been mounting roadblocks in the district, raising security concerns. I mean, what are they doing at the roadblock? You know, I'm not trying to be cheesy, but seriously, like holy water or garlic or something. I mean, heck, what they believe in vampires, I would love that their mythology for vampires could be way different than what we think. The development has been a grave concern to the president and the entire group, his office said in a statement. The UNDSS reports that vampirism rumors appear to have originated in neighboring Mozambique, although it was not clear what had sparked them. It recommended the temporary suspension of UN activities in the area until the situation is normalized. I mean, this is just an update from what we talked about last week, but man, I think we might be talking about it for a while. I love the idea of different cultures, and you know, we think vampires are a myth and a legend, you know, not true, but maybe we're wrong. Maybe there is something truth to vampires. I don't know. These people really believe in it enough that they are killing people. So it's pretty scary. All right, this one comes from Grind TV. This is a video. Mysterious large cat has Mississippi town wondering what's in its midst. This comes from October 13th by Pete Thomas from Grind TV. The sighting Wednesday of an enormous cat roaming a field in northern Mississippi has local residents on the lookout and perhaps a bit on edge. David Slender captured video footage of the cat from his vehicle while it was fast in in a fast food restaurant line at Hernando. And the footage Slender posted on Facebook, he says, I'm 100 yards away from this cat right now. I don't know what kind of cat it is, but this thing is huge, and you can see it is big. I don't have the audio up for this one. You hear him talking about it, but this is definitely not like a misidentification of a small cat or something. No, this is definitely a big cat. The video has gone viral, more than 5,000 shares, and the mystery creature has been unofficially identified as everything from an oversized house cat to a mountain lion to a panther. The later two seem unlikely that there have been no confirmed sightings of mountain lions in Mississippi in more than 100 years. There are no known panthers in the state either. Slender told Carrion Ledger that he first thought the critter was a deer or coyote because it was so large. I've never seen a cat that big, which is why I shot the video of it. Rick Flint, a biologist with Mississippi Department of Wildlife and Fisheries and Parks, told Carrion Ledger that the animal is simply a large house cat, saying he pointed to the ears or the giveaway. I don't know, man. It just does not seem like a large house cat to me. That seems like a mountain lion or a panther. I mean, just the depth and the perception of what it looks. I mean, maybe it is a trick. Maybe it's just a cat. But, man, maybe. It could be just a cat. I don't know. It looks big. It could just be the depth perception tricking. So that guy says it's just a cat. I've seen other videos where it looked like it, and they're like, nope, it's just a cat. I don't know. Looks like a big cat, though. I wouldn't want to be going out in that field. All right. This next one, this is going to have a video that has sound. This is comes from the mirror.co.uk. It was all over a number of articles. Girls run screaming in terror after filming a goblin while walking in the countryside, but it's creepy footage is all that it seems. All right, go ahead and play it, Jeff. You'll hear their frantic cries here. It's hard to see in this video, and you can find this on our World Wide Web Weird playlist, but it's like a little creature walking in the background, like running. It's going to start running towards them. They're going to really flip out. You can see it just in the background. It's hard to see. They really freak out when it starts running across the field. It's hard to see. It might be hard to see for people on Facebook Live right now watching. You can see him run, and then she suddenly turns the camera and freaks out. But you can't tell what really it is. It could be a person. I mean, a little person maybe. it was really hard to tell what it is. Okay, you can stop the video, it starts running towards them, and they freak out and take off running while she's still filming, kind of. All right, so a group of teenage girls were left terrified after spotting what they believed to be a goblin during a countryside stroll. The youngsters were all walking out near the village of Taco Palato Miriati, I'm totally butchered that, in the northwestern Argentina province of Tucumán. Tutankhamun? I got that wrong. Tutankhamun would be the Egyptian pharaoh. When they saw the strange-looking creature, one of the girls claims to have filmed the goblin emerging from the trees as she and her friends walked through the fields. Mobile footage appears to show the shadowy creature in the distance as the crying and wailing can be heard out of shot. One of the teenagers can be heard in the background asking, "Is that a goblin?" while another one replies, "It's a goblin," before they turn and flee in fear. As the small figure walks towards them, the girls are heard crying and shouting, "Run, run." Of course, in Argentina, whatever they speak language-wise. The video was posted online where it split opinion over whether it was genuine or not. User Robert Cardoza commented, "Magical creature, it rapes you 5 times before it touches the ground." There was another goblin video we played back on the World Wide Web Weird a while ago. In February this year, a neighboring province, this is the video they're talking about, of Santiago del Estero, a group of children said they were too scared to play by a football after spotting what they believed was a goblin near the pitch. Goblins are monstrous mythical creatures mentioned in European folklore in the Middle Ages. They're actually described as small and grotesque, mischievous or evil, and greedy, especially for gold and jewelry. They often have magical abilities. So this wasn't far from, I guess, where we talked about the video we showed on the World Wide Web Weird. It's been a while. It could have been a year ago, I think, since we had that goblin video. So 2 goblin videos now. All right, let's get back to the next. Let's go. That was number 3, right? All right, number 4 here. This has been pretty viral. Everybody's talking about that. I'm not seeing an actual picture of it. I see a lot of other pictures. I don't think any of them are the real ones, so I don't have a picture to show what they're talking. Just this one from Unexplained Mysteries. This is where you get this article. Mystery surrounds giant hole in Antarctica. A hole a size larger than the Netherlands has been described by scientists as quite remarkable. Known as Pollyanna, or I guess I got that wrong, a word that Polynia, a word that Russia refers to an area of water surrounded by ice. This particular anomaly was first observed back in the 70s to the east of the Antarctic Peninsula. It disappeared for a better part of 4 decades, but then last year, and now this year, it has suddenly started to open up again, leaving scientists scratching their heads. The hole is believed to form when a layer of warm water from the bottom of the ocean rises to the surface, displacing the colder layer above it and melting the ice. This is likely opening a pressure relief valve, said Professor Mojub Latif. The ocean then releases a surplus of heat to the atmosphere for several consecutive winters until the heat reservoir is exhausted. The key is now to understand exactly why this happens, whether or not it has anything to do with climate change, of course, and if it does, whether it's down to a natural or man-made process. Like I said, it was open in the 70s. I think that's what I read. So it might be just a natural occurrence. Of course, everybody thinks like a hole in Antarctica that just it's a title grabber because you think, they talk about like the hollow earth theory and there's a hole, but this is like a hole of water. So I don't know. Of course, they're going to say, climate change. I don't know. All right, let's move on. Number 5 here is another one from Unexplained Mysteries. This one is something that's always scared me. Of course, this is totally clickbait, but it is on Yahoo News. It is on a number of news TV shows have talked about this, so it makes it even more scary for you. Supervolcano could erupt sooner than thought. The enormous supervolcano in Yellowstone National Park could erupt with only a few years' warning. The natural beauty and hot springs of Yellowstone's National Park attract thousands of tourists from all over the world on an annual basis. But not far below the park's serene surface is an increasingly large chamber of molten hot magma with the potential to erupt at any time. When inevitable does happen, the Yellowstone supervolcano will cause untold devastation across hundreds of square miles and impact the climate on a global level. The last time an eruption occurred was 631,000 years ago, suggesting that another one is long overdue. However, exactly when this might happen has long remained a bit of a mystery. Now scientists are studying fossilized ash deposits from earlier eruptions, have reached an unsettling conclusion that a future eruption could occur with far less warning than previously thought. Rather than knowing about such an eruption centuries or even thousands of years in advance, we may only have mere decades to prepare and perhaps even less time than that. It's one thing to think about this slow, gradual buildup. It's another thing to think about how you mobilize 1,000 cubic kilometers of magma in a decade, said geochemist Kari Cooper. So, yeah, I watched that horrible movie, 2012, John Cusack. You remember that? and when it goes and Woody Harrelson's out there going, heck yeah, you know. But that's the scariest part of the movie, because I mean, really, I don't think it would be that bad. You know, they really overdid it in that movie. It really overdid it, but it would be bad. It would be life-ending. I mean, it would be really bad if this thing goes off, and it's like a matter of when to make it. An asteroid's one thing. That's another thing. It's a matter of when. You talk about this, it's like a ticking time bomb. All right. Last on the World Wide Web of Weird. We're going to play this video here in a second. It's going to have audio. This comes from the Sun.co UK. This has been extremely viral. Everybody, it's watching tonight might have seen this video in a Facebook feed. And I do have some things to say. I'll let you guys watch and I'll say it. But this scary movie, bizarre footage of mom possessed by child ghosts, could be the most over-the-top paranormal video ever. Rebecca Palmer is with her husband, ghost hunter Sean Reynolds, who tries to talk to her when she bows her head. Well, go ahead and play the video with the audio.
Bex? He's going mad right now, and he's just said, "Mummy." He's just said, "Mummy." Bex? Bex? It's like somebody has attached themselves to Bex.
We should go and call Paul. Mummy? Mummy? Pass me the radio, please. Mummy? Hello, Emma. Where's Paul? Mummy?
Paul is on the stage.
Right, I need him right. Quick. Oh! Oh my God.
Someone had attached themselves to me, which made me feel like a child. When Sean touched me, instantly I felt a force pushing away.
Quick.
What's the matter?
All right, go ahead and stop the audio from it. It's clipping out anyways.
Push me away from it.
The audio is clipping on this, but you see it right here. There's the video shot here. You see he gets like pushed away, supposedly. Is this a contender for the most over-the-top paranormal footage recorded, as a mom claims she was possessed by a child spirit before her husband was apparently thrown across the room by the same ghost when he tried to confront her? The footage intended to be chilling shows Rebecca Palmer sat in the dark of a haunted theater clutching an inappropriately old, creepy-looking doll. She is with her husband, ghost hunter Sean Reynolds, who tries to talk to her when she falls silent and bows her head. The couple host-scan equipment used to pick up paranormal energy is heard making robotic noises as Sean tells the camera this means it has found activity in the room. In the scene that could be found in the scary movie, Rebecca, 34, calls out "Mummy" and hugs the teddy doll to her chest while looking the teddy doll to her chest while looking seemingly frightened and confused. Her husband is called back in the room by panicked members of the crew and is filmed trying to comfort her before she falls to the floor, captured by a panning camera. And he later calmly tells the camera that he had been pushed by some force before he fell. Later in the video, you can watch this. I have the link to the full video on the World Wide Web of Weird. They like get her out of it, and they get her out of the room. Now, I have no way of knowing if this stuff is real. You don't, I don't. But man, when they say over the top, yeah. But it reminds me of the most haunted. Remember TV show? I'm just going to say it. I mean, they did so many over the top things, and it was fake. What do people do? I'm not going to say it is fake, but it's their experience. There's nothing in this evidence-wise. The ovula says "mommy," right before she starts going into her trance state. So I don't know. Could it be real? I feel shenanigans are at foot, but I could be wrong. Maybe it was really pushed. It's hard to say, but I don't know. Seems a bit sensational. It seems a bit over the top. No, I don't know. I could be just a pessimist. I don't know. I don't know what you think, Jamie or Rob, who has joined us in the panel tonight. How you doing tonight, Rob?
Pretty good, I think.
Have you seen this video?
No, I haven't. Not until now. But,
yeah, it's been going around. It just came out this week, and is this these guys trying to get a show going, or is this the real deal? I mean, was she really? I've seen walk-ins happen on people, not that severe.
Yeah,
I've heard of
yeah.
it. I've heard of it. I've heard it being that severe, where somebody's like totally not themselves at all.
I hate to say it, and I don't want to always be that one,
I know.
but I call shenanigans.
I know. I totally call shenanigans on it. I really do.
I don't want to.
I
I don't
don't.
want
I
to.
feel like a dick for doing it, but
Me too.
it just seems just so over the top. It just does not seem. It just seems like some people may be trying to get some attention. I don't know. I really don't.
Unless it's like right here and you know the person, you trust the people, and you're there and you're experiencing
Sure,
it, can you really, really tell?
I can't
From a
say
third-party
I
perspective.
can't say it's fake. I can't say that. There's no way I know that it's fake. There's nothing in it that says for sure that this is fake.
Yeah,
it
I mean,
could be legit.
it's easy to say, that's BS, but it could be real. I know I've seen some weird stuff in the last couple of weeks that makes me think twice about stuff like that.
You wonder. All right, well, we better get rolling and get out of the World Wide Web of Weird, because I want to get to our guests. They have always so much. Time goes by so fast with these guys, so I really want to get going. I'm already running behind. So coming up next after the commercial break, and of course, there's music on Late Night in the Midlands Radio Network, not on Facebook. You won't hear it. You're going to hear some quiet as we go in the commercial break. But Chad and Alta Dilla, we're going to talk about Orbducted in the French Quarter, their experience being abducted by a glowing orb, and their experience of meeting an alien, a blue one at that. And so much. I mean, it's just so. I'm not even giving it justice. The high strangeness around these people. The so many weird experiences. All right, guys, be back with you in just a few minutes. All right, tonight's guests, Chad and Alta Diller. We're going to talk about their book and their experience, Orbducted in the French Quarter. We had them on about a month ago, and we had such a great time. I invited them back as soon as I could get them scheduled, because there was just so much we didn't get to cover. I mean, they really fit. The emblem of the show is a alien, a Bigfoot, and a ghost. They have all that experiences in their high strangeness, and not just in New Orleans. They've been in a number of places. So I really want to focus tonight. We're going to get to more detail about what happened the night they were abducted. All right, guys, be with you in just a sec. You there with us, Chad and Alta?
We are here.
Awesome. So glad to have you guys back. Thank you for coming back again. So, I mean, it's only been a month. I don't usually have guests on that soon, but I felt like we needed like a part 2, because there's just so much going on. Like so much. You have so many crazy experiences. I don't mean to characterize them as crazy. They're not. I mean, they happen to you. I believe you, but it's so. It's just. High strangeness. That's the best term. There's just no way to describe. Like, you can't just make it a simple alien abduction story. There's a lot going on with
Fascinating.
You guys. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think with our travels and everything, it's kind of put us in a lot of different situations, and so hence the different types of experiences that we've had.
Right. And thank you again so much for having us back. We had so much fun with you all the first time. So, we just really look forward to tonight as well. And my take on it all is, is it chicken or the egg? It's been this kind of crazy journey.
Well, kind of a recap for people a little bit here. We talked about last time, we spent a little bit of time talking about how you guys met each other, a series of synchronicities, you could call them, or strange quinky-dink things that kind of brought you two together. So you guys, basically, to make it short, you think we're destined to be together.
Right. From the very beginning of all of this, for me, on a personal level, I've always used the term, and I mean it in the highest regards, because I love Chad, and it's not for lack of not loving him, but the word is arranged. I have always felt that there is an arrangement going on here. I have no idea the who, the what, or the how, but, that's certainly been my take on it.
Right.
Well, really, listening to your story last time you were on, it just felt like, you had the somebody try to set you up on a date, which you guys both basically, well, you kind of had to decline at the time or whatever, and then you end up on a date that same night. That's just that's crazy. You know, like that really means something. Really wanted you to get together, no matter what you guys felt.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, it definitely had a outside hand.
And for people too, you know, after this, some of the people might not have seen the first episode. We are going to kind of brush over a lot of the stuff that's, you know, at the beginning of their book, Orbducted in the French Quarter, because I really want to get down to the night this happened. Now, was it, if I remember right, 1997?
Right. Around this time, we think it's, you know, we've always said that we thought it was somewhere in September, and close enough for us as far as we're concerned right now. So, right, 1997, 20 years ago.
So you thought it happened like around in October?
You know, it's always felt like somewhere through September, the end of September. This is, again, close enough for me, because this is generally considered a slow time, you know, for the quarter in terms of its normal 24/7, high-paced, nonstop activity. This is relatively, I think, considered a slower time for the quarter, but even at that, they still have conventions here constantly, and there's always people.
You know, for me, that's the thing. This is what made the story so interesting, is that night, how it starts out for you guys. All of you, it was you, Chad, and a friend of yours that night decided to go out partying, and there was no party in the French Quarter.
Right. You know, I was talking to some people, you know, some locals the other day, and you know, sharing my story and everything, and you know, they're like, no way, you know, there's always something, you know, there's always something going on, you know, especially, I mean, because we were on Bourbon Street, you know, so.
It's just creepy to repeat it. I mean, just to repeat the fact that, as you just said, Jason, there was no party anywhere. And then what was considered our norm that we had gotten accustomed to, for the couple of places that we did stop at that were what we would more refer to as not only for tourism, but certainly for the locals, all of that was out of normal. Not only no people, but, you know, a shut door that had never been shut before, asking for a cover charge. We'd been attending, you know, we'd been this place a couple of years, and that had never happened. Just one bizarreness after another.
So we refer to your friend. Do we have a name to give to your friend to refer in the story tonight?
Right. We refer to her as Christine. She was also my coworker.
And now, one of the things my wife found really interesting about your story was that she just like wants to hear more about, and so I have to ask again a little bit and have you rehash it too. Before we get into the Orbduction, where you guys, you know, this weird experience, she had a weird experience. What was a day or two before this, with a boyfriend that was a werewolf.
The Wolfie Boy.
Yeah, this is weird. My wife loves this kind of stuff. You know, it's anything like, you know, shapeshifter wise, skinwalker kind of thing. And she loves it. And I find it immensely interesting because of the alien connection to it, like, you know, the soup.
Exactly. I keep referring to the word exactly because it is just amazing to me when we look at your logo, and we certainly reflect on all of this happening in our world. But yeah, it actually took place. We're not exactly sure how long, but it was relatively very soon prior to us, as I call it, being taken that night. Days, maybe a few weeks. I'm not exactly sure. But she had been dating this guy just very briefly. His name Will, and as I've always said, he was her polar opposite. She was tall, slender, long blonde hair, and had a very fun, gregarious, strong personality that suited her looks as well. And she has an amazing laugh. And she also, I like to refer to her as seeming to be somebody at that young age. She was 24 at the time. Had a very clear, I understood it, a very clear sense of her right and her wrong in the world. And she also dedicated, even that young, even much younger than that, I'm sure, to the welfare of children, animals.
Sounds like an old soul kind of thing.
I'm sorry?
Sounds like an old soul kind of description.
Exactly. And so here she is in this personality, and she's dating this guy, as I say, for a very brief time, named Will, who has long dark hair. He's adorable, physically adorable, but as I always have said, I took it as her opposite. Now, again, I'll restate, I was only around him very briefly, but as I've also said, she only dated him for a brief amount of time. When she decided that it was time to let him know that she wanted to see other folks, she invited him over to her house.
She gave him the
middle of the
friends speech, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Good memory. And I like your butt. And she said he's only just a couple inches in front of her face. And as she's giving him this I like your butt business, he's becoming extremely, this is the words I remember, extremely emotional, but not just on the outside. It seems to be coming from within as well, where he's, very quickly changing. And he's not only changing, he's changing because she says he turns into a wolf. She said that she turns her head away immediately. And when she says this, again, I know she wouldn't be saying it to me if she didn't believe it in the first place.
Right.
Not that type of personality, no drama queen here at all. And she also, again, makes it very clear to me that when she turns her head away, it's instant. And I remember that when Chad and I saw our first UFO together, I did exactly the same thing. So when she's repeating my actions, of course I know she's telling me her truth.
That she kind of looked away from it, right? Just...
Yeah, she flipped her head away instantly, turned her head away from it instantly, like rejection.
Right.
And then she looked back, and he had to have, and Chad refers to this in its proper term, I'm sure, as shape-shifting. He had to have shifted back human because he shifted a second time, again in front of her face, into a wolf. And she, in a very direct manner, I'm sure scared out of her wits, but in a very direct manner, said, and then again I'll clean the language up, you just turned into an effing wolf. And she said his response in a very startled voice was, you saw that. So.
But I saw nothing. I don't know. But bye.
Yeah.
I didn't see nothing. Nothing.
You know what it reminds me of, and I hate to be a geek boy here, but I am, is a show that's ended this year that I'm going to miss is Grimm. Have you ever seen that?
Chad
I've seen a couple of episodes. I'm not like a big follower or anything, but I have seen a couple of.
In it, there's all these different people that are different kinds of creatures, and one's a blue bot that's kind of like a wolf, and they call it Vogue. Not like Madonna Vogue, strike a pose. No, it was like Vogue, and they would turn into this creature, and the main character, he was the only one who could see it, because he was special. He was a Grimm. You wonder if she was special, if anybody else standing next to her would have actually seen it. That's why he said that.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? That's a great take on that. That's why we so enjoy having these conversations with you. Because that's what we've looked for all along and waited for, is just to engage in conversation about all of this. Because
you're going to get geekdom from me, from my influence of Hollywood and sci-fi. And
I've not had any real exposure myself, so I'm open to all of it. And again, I'll also preface that I can only presume, but my take on her sharing that with me originally, she's not going around telling folks this story.
She's telling her best friend.
Or I'd like to certainly think a confidant, as well as the fact that I'm mixed Indian. Now, I've never questioned the native lore about shape-shifting and star beings and
Skinwalkers.
Sasquatches and right. I have not, but it's not something I've ever had particularly an interest in because I haven't been raised with the people. I've been raised with a mother who was a very strong-willed woman, and as I've said in the past, a self-made woman. And so she always honored all of it, but it wasn't something that was our daily conversation. And my take on it is that our friend shared this with me because of my Native background and knew that it was safe to tell me something this crazy because, compared to, it seems like what we have been going through, why not?
Well,
let's just add this to the mix.
Well, you wonder how many people have had that experience,
Oh,
because
man,
you're not going
I
to tell
sure
anybody
do.
but somebody, a close confidant, or no one at all. It takes a lot to even tell a close confidant, hey, I just saw a guy, a guy totally shapeshift right in front of me. Not many people are comfortable telling that to anyone.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm so sorry for that. I get it. Boy, do I ever get it. But I am so sorry for that because, like you said, just I can't even imagine how many of us are out here without a voice. And that's as painful as having a voice and being attacked. I mean,
Well, I know I've seen crazy stuff. I've never seen somebody turn into a werewolf, but I saw a guy working in a store once. I was working, and when I say, if somebody else had been in there with her, she might have been the only one to see it because I've had that experience. Working a retail store, I had a customer come in who looked like a zombie. He was wearing normal clothes, but he had like dead skin, and his eyes were glowing purple. Glowing purple, like this purple aura was coming out of that. Nobody else is looking at him or noticing it. And I went up to one of my coworkers. I said, "Anything weird about that guy?" No. So I'm the only one seeing it. Okay. And I walked to the back and waited back there, splashed some water on my face, and came out. He was still there, and he still looked the same. And nobody noticed, and he just walked right out. And I just stood there like a dummy with my mouth hanging open. And I still to this day have no idea what it was I witnessed or why I was the only one in the store. Am I losing my mind? I told my wife. That was the only person I told at the time before I just came out as a weirdo. Now I don't care. I'll tell anybody my stories. But back then, the only person I told that to was my wife. I was the only person I could confide that into.
That's a great story.
But it makes you wonder, was she special enough to see it?
Right.
These are the questions I ask, I'd have to say, almost on a daily basis internally. Just, the whole big perspective of it, because it's just, why did she have this experience? And then if I might add, again, just for the purpose of the conversation and helping folks, if anyone's listening, to kind of keep it in context, this individual, this Wolfie boy, excuse me, that I affectionately refer to him as, and I do that, I promise you, you'll hear me oftentimes using a lot of baby language to just kind of get through it. Like, they're not ghosts, these are ghosties. And we're not talking Sasquatch, these are Sasquatchies. And he's a Wolfie boy. And, any other kind of baby language I can come up with, just again to get through some of this craziness, just craziness. So he comes back into the picture again,
right?
Wolfie boy, 2 more times, if you will. It would seem from our experience in '97 until 2001, he's seeming to be blended back and forth into this experience with these, whatever this other is. Others call them aliens, ETs.
Well,
I
know where he blends in one way after all this, but maybe we should save that till after you tell the story a little bit of, of the night of the main incident. So this friend Christine, after having this incident with her ex-boyfriend, was it a night or two later this happens with you guys?
It was actually probably, days, weeks, if you will.
Within
a short amount of time, a relatively short amount of time. Not as quickly as that, but certainly in the perspective of things, just around the corner.
Right.
So this leads her into this. That's her experience. And then did you want us to go ahead and just
Yeah.
pick it back up from
Yeah, go for it.
the actual Orbduction itself?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the short story is, again, just kind of moving us through the quarter. On this particular evening, she's asked me to go out and have drinks and dinner in the quarter. We call Chad. We only lived a couple blocks from the shop. She's my coworker. We step out of the shop, the three of us. She locks the doors. It's 9:30. It's how we happen to know when the night begins.
Mm-hmm.
From the moment we came out of the shop, I take note and I make mention of it that it felt weird. The energy felt weird. And again, I don't know how to describe that any clearer than it just felt off. As I've said before, I didn't think of it as paranormal, high strangeness, none of that kind of, just weird. And so, well, okay, we're going to go out and have a good time. We're going to always have a good time. That's another thing about us. We didn't do it a lot, but when we did do it, we knew how to do it. And so,
Know how to have a good time.
exactly, we know how to do that. And we start our night. We decide we're going to spontaneously begin from the beginning of Bourbon Street on one end of the quarter, about a 13-block distance, and we're just going to go down from one end to the other and stop wherever we choose with no plans. It's all spontaneous. From the moment our night begins, we start to realize, all three of us, not only it feel weird, it looks weird. Where is everybody? There are a few folks straggling about, but it's pretty barren.
I
It's
missed.
vague.
Was this a weeknight or a weekend? I can't remember.
It would have been well, it's hard to say now when I'm
You
thinking
know,
about it. I'm thinking it's a weeknight.
yeah, I think it might be like maybe like a Sunday, because we usually had like Mondays and Tuesdays off.
That were our weekends.
That were our weekend.
And we were working
because we
that
were
night.
tourists.
So
I can't guarantee it or say 100%, but I would think this would be a Sunday night, but that doesn't, you still have plenty of tourists still in town, and then that means, if the tourists are, not there, the local clubs are going, everybody's going to be off work, and
I know how it is. Like, people are like, "Well, this happened to you. Why don't you remember what day it happened?" I know my major UFO incident. What happened the same year this happened to you. I couldn't tell you what day that happened. I don't remember. Yeah. I didn't mark it down on a calendar. I just shot it up to being really strange and odd. I saw a huge UFO in the sky. It was in '97. I was in high school. I don't remember what day that was. If it was a weekend or not, or a day. I just remember it, and it never happened. I didn't write it down. I wish I would have. If I was, I was a teenager, I didn't care. I just blew it off. I cared, but I just, I wish I would have wrote it down.
Right. It's kind of like, if we could go back and know what we know now,
right.
And also, we've got 20
years
years later,
right?
And there are a few times when we have been interviewed where I have slipped and really must have sounded much more affected than I've worked very hard over the years not to sound so affected in these interviews. But we cannot begin to tell folks the trauma, cannot begin to tell anybody.
These are usually not fun experiences for people.
Through.
These are usually not fun experiences.
It was anything but.
Right.
And so, just adding that kind of to the mix, if you can keep this in mind, we're going through unbelievable trauma. It's shocking we know our names, to be quite honest with you. And there are days I check myself on that. It really has been. It has been a very interesting ride. So we're not able to. We can get, I think, fairly close, though, now that we're being asked more direct about it, because we've just never been asked questions to help us hone in on such as. But I can guarantee you that it was after this night of what I call being taken, Chad and I laid low for 2 days, never surfaced for 2 days. Again, traumatized beyond words. Also, our friend was missing. And so it would have been 2 days I was off work, and then, I went to work. And so my off days were usually a Monday and a Tuesday. So I'm suggesting, just like Chad said, it was probably a Sunday night when this happened to us. But again, in the quarter, that doesn't really make much difference.
No, it doesn't. I've never been there, but I
So-
know everybody. I know so many people that go, and they usually say something's always happening, especially on Bourbon Street.
Oh yeah.
Always on Bourbon Street.
Right. So you guys
And
are,
s-
going down
Yeah.
through the down Bourbon Street looking for a good time, and it's empty streets is what you're saying. Like there's just nobody walking around. There's nothing happening.
Well, and on top of that, I mean, that was our first notice, just as we're beginning this evening. But the real telltale is the first location we stop at. It was a place that Chad had worked at a few years prior when we first moved to the quarter on Bourbon. It was a great big restaurant, had a big dance club upstairs with balconies you see on television, had a big courtyard, I call it like a cabana bar as well, where it was opened up to the street right on Bourbon.
Mhm.
So it was a huge location with lots of staff, and we knew everybody.
Yeah, in the band, we knew the band, and
We knew
all of
everybody.
that,
You know, it was Chad had worked there, and we knew everyone. And on this night, when we start this evening, not only is there nobody there, did I say there was nobody there? There was nobody there but one person. Happened to be a guy that was the manager, and also one we called a friend that we hadn't seen in a long time. And he was it. There was nobody. There were no customers.
And this
There
is the
was
place
no-
that's on the cover
yeah.
of the book, right behind the blue alien.
no,
No, that was our last location.
That's your last stop. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, no. This is our first stop, and it's like I'm saying, it's a very large, with all kinds of venues, and there's nobody there. And there's nobody to work it, and there's nobody to buy it. And so that's the beginnings of our evening of what the hey, this is
I'm
what
ready
the
to
hey.
party, and there's nobody to party.
There ain't nobody. And so a little more high strangeness, I feel, was taking place at this location, but nothing that we were really taking note of other than just like, oh, okay, it's time to move on. And dude made us all a house drink, but none of us remember ever drinking it. So to the best of our knowledge, again, we've always indicated no drugs and no alcohol this
Right.
night. We don't stick around long enough. We're trying to find a party. And so, because I mean, there's not even any music. It's just bizarre. So we leave there, and now we'll just work ourselves across the quarter. Each location that we stopped at, it's the same story. There's only one person, or what appears to be a human, in each of these locations, either a bartender or a manager. So, and again, more high strangeness involved in all of that. We get to that last location, and that's the picture that's on the book, that corner.
Jeff, if you're
That
listening,
place-
I'd say my engineer, he can pull up that. I have the actual picture of the place too, if he can pull that up. We're getting to the last
Yeah,
stop.
it's called Checkpoint Charlie's, and it's on the corner of Esplanade and Decatur,
Which are
and then
Esplanade's a major thoroughfare that runs through New Orleans
right,
and Decatur. So it's really the very last.
yeah, it's
section
like
of the
right
French
around
Quarter.
the Old Mint, and
But the idea here is it's the end of the quarter,
yeah,
and that location is always been known. My understanding is a dive, just a
Right.
very fun dive. That when famous folks would come in to do their gigs, more time than not, they'd stop off at this dive and do free playing.
yeah.
And-
Well, Lenny Kravitz was lived in the neighborhood. It was.
Mhm.
So it was always a good time. It was always fun, and but it was always a dive. On this particular night, when we walk across the street as we head towards it, knowing this is going to be our last stop, because at this point now I'm over it and I just want to go home.
Right.
We're giving it our very last effort. As we walk across the street towards it, the door is open. But now they've got a little blonde, cutie patootie guy standing out in front of it like a doorman. That's a first. That doesn't happen. There's never been a doorman at this
Yeah,
dive.
especially on a slope when there's nobody to
Right.
door.
Why you need a doorman? There's
Doorman.
nobody coming to the door.
Yeah.
And he's conveniently real cute, like our friend, and he conveniently looks like he's around the same age. She was 24 at the time. Just my fast presumptions. I kind of blow past him like, oh, what next? This is
Right.
what next? And as I move past him, the door is open, so I'm just gonna stick my head in there and see. Oh, please tell me this is where the whole party in New Orleans is. And wouldn't you know, I'll give you 3 guesses. It's empty. And so now I'm not saying nothing no more.
Right.
I just kind of, with my head drooping down behind my bottom, I'm dragging myself over to this stoop that's about halfway down the block. And Chad's following, kind of bedraggled behind me. And I'm saying to him, without our friend hearing it, how bored I am and that I just want to go home. And he's in agreement with me. And our friend is still, last I remembered, standing several feet away, still talking to the cute doorman. I remember thinking to myself, well, at least he's cute and at least she's got somebody to hang with.
Was
You know,
he
maybe
blonde-haired
something
and
happened
blue-eyed
to her.
too? Was he blonde-haired and
He
blue-eyed?
was blonde. I don't remember his eye color, but he definitely was blonde. I do remember that. And like I said, and seemed to be appropriately the same age as she, just making a real guess at it. And truly out of place. And so...
Yeah, because he wasn't like a big, huge muscle man.
Yeah,
kind of.
he was a little guy.
He was a little guy.
He was a cute little guy. He looked like a little surfer dude.
Yeah.
Kind of. It was just taking note of all that again, just as out of place. And like Chad said, you know, who you doormanning for? There ain't a soul, not a soul. If there's souls in there, you can't see them inside this club. So I think we've built that story big enough for you to understand there's nobody out there. And but we're done. Like I am done. And so as we get over to the stoop, my last memory is whining to Chad. I just want to go home, Chad. I don't even want to walk the blocks back to our apartment. Let's call a cab.
Right.
Is what I think I remember saying. And then the next thing I know, and that's where it makes this huge jump. We remember it around 11 o'clock at night. So we're out there for an hour and a half, is the totality of our big party night. And the next thing I know, it's somewhere between 8 and 9 the next morning. I'm now sitting up Indian style on I have a brass daybed in my living room. That's where I'm sitting. My eyes, I never woke up. People always refer to me waking up. I never woke up. I came to. My eyes pop open. I'm rubbing my arms. I can feel something in my upper arm. And I see sun blaring through my window. And I am going through unbelievable stuff. Because I've got a memory also. I'm just coming out of an experience where I have a very full memory. But now all of a sudden I'm in my house, and where is Chad and where is our friend? And oh my God.
Now, Chad, you remember seeing something before you lose track of time, right? The orb.
Well, no, I didn't. I didn't. The last thing I remember is on that stoop,
right.
and the next thing I know is I woke up. Now, the only thing that, you know, when I had my regression done, and that's when I saw the orb and the light. And
now, when you woke up, Alta, you said you had that feeling like something was in your arm. That something turned out to be something.
It did, and it is. It's still there. Right when I came to, like I said, I'm in a sitting position, and I'm in the position of cross-legged, sitting straight up, rubbing my arms. When my eyes pop open, I can feel something in my upper left arm. And again, to shorten the story, I get to the bathroom very quickly and find some tweezers. I pull something out of my arm that's extremely tight. I mean, it's very tight. and it felt like it was a thorn, like a
Yeah.
Cactus needle.
a cactus, tiny cactus needle. But what was so crazy about all of it, as if all of it's not crazy enough, as my hand would rub over it, it would certainly sticker my finger like a thorn would, but there was
Yeah.
never any pain in my arm or anything. When I pulled this out of my arm, there was no pain. It left a teeny tiny hole, teeny pinhole, and it was a solid when it was in my arm, but when I pulled it out, it started to dissolve, and it absolutely flipped me out. And I turned on the faucet, and I began to scrub like I
Right.
was going to scrub my skin off. And then I come out of the bathroom, and I'm beelining for Chad, because I don't even know that it's Chad. I see a lump in my bed, praying to the heavens, to the gods, that lump belongs to me.
Right.
But at that time, I'm only seeing one lump. There should be two. I've been grateful to have had my friend be the second lump in my bed next to my first lump. But there's only one lump, and it's Chad, because at this point now the lump has gotten up, and he's moving towards me as I'm coming towards him. And I'm expecting him to explain everything.
Right.
And I'm seeing instantly in his face, he can't explain nothing. He's lost. And he's looking for the same thing from me. And I'm whining, Chad, I got something in my arm, and I got this memory, and, it was just, and then we're taking note of the fact, in the middle of all of this insanity, where is our friend?
Right.
She's missing. She ain't there. She's nowhere.
Yeah, that's got to be a pretty bad feeling to have, to wake up, not know. You were just talking to your friend, or she was near you, and to wait, or come to so many hours later and not have any idea where she is. That had to have been scary.
It's scary. We would never wish this on our worst, much less anybody we care about.
Right.
It's mind-blowing.
So how long was it before you said before that you guys kind of, after all this happened, didn't leave the house for a couple days, and you didn't know that during those couple days where your friend was. When did you eventually hear from her or find out she was all right, or somewhat all right?
Yeah, that was one of the longest 48 hours of my life, our lives. It was 2 days. And then I had to go back to work. So just praying like I'd never prayed before, because you can imagine, I've got to go back to work. She manages that shop, or she's thought of as a management in that shop. And and what am I going to do if she's missing? It's just, it's mind-blowing. And so when I get back to the shop, again, thank the heavens, she's there. She's working, just like it's a normal day. Now, Chad and I have gone through absolute hell, and I got this something in my arm,
Right.
on top of it, and I had strange handprints on my arms as well that Chad discovered, the day of coming to, or me coming to, and him waking up. So I got all this trauma, all this insanity going on inside of me that I want to say to her, but I'm waiting for her to say something to me. And she basically, and the only thing that I can make any sense out of is, at the time this all happened to us, I had just turned 40. Chad was 30, and she was just 24. And I kind of see this, I think, as just really a big age difference in us, in how we handle things generationally. I don't know, or maybe I'm just nuts, because she was 24 smooth as butter.
Well, obviously she blew it off because she didn't call you right away or find you right away to be like, hey, what happened last night? Turds like, another night where I blacked out. I don't know if that's a 24-year-old's thought process in that, but you got to wonder.
Well, what she basically shares is, she's very clear that she knows something happened to us. She knows it. But that was enough for her. It was enough. She said that she'd taken the time to just try to process. Now, whatever that means, That's how she basically responds to me. I'm effing wigging out
Right.
in my townhouse with Chad. There's us, and she's just quietly taking time to process. And more power to her. I so wish that would have been my story, but that was not, and nor has it been. But that's how she dealt with it, and she made it clear that she had no memory. But she did repeat now, if you're interested, I could share with you at this point what she claims happened to her.
Well, why don't we hold that, because we'll go to the commercial break. For after the commercial break, a good cliffhanger, because I am interested in what happened to her, because I think she's a big key to what happened to you guys that night. Sounds like she, like you, with all your high strangeness in your life, sounds like she had plenty of her own high strangeness.
Wow, that was worth everything just now, Jason, to hear you say that, because she always felt and said this to me, and I haven't really ever said this publicly in any of the interviews, but she indicated to me that she pretty much thought she was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and
Really?
pretty much thought this all was based around me.
Maybe
And
she
I
could
thought,
be.
wait a minute, no. That has never been my understanding of
Really?
this, because I've done nothing but research this and study this. And I mean, Chad's got a lot of crazy in his family. She had a lot of crazy in her family. Some of the stories she had shared with me about her childhood and paranormal, high strangeness, and alien, I might add.
Right.
So it's like, wait a minute. No, I don't think so. I think that this is all pretty equally distributed amongst all of us. Thank you.
A lot of high strangeness going on. All right, guys. Speaking of that, we will come back with more high strangeness after the commercial break. And you can call in and ask Chad and Alta any questions you want. Oh, well, be respectful. But we have 2 Skype lines. I'll give those out when we come back from the commercial break. And, of course, there's music on Late Night in the Midlands Radio Network. You can listen there on TalkStream. You can listen to it on TuneIns, or go to Late Night in the Midlands Radio Network if you just want to listen, because we got the music on there. All right, guys. We'll be back with you in just a few minutes. We're coming back here in a second with our guests Chad and Alta Diller, talking about their abduction in the French Quarter. They gave me their book a month ago before they came on the show and read it. And I mean, there's just so much. I wish I could fit in all the high strangeness that is in that book. And they didn't even get to fit everything into that book, as we've talked about before. It's just they've gone through so many weird experiences. And we're talking about the biggest, weirdest experiences, the Orbduction, of course, tonight. And even their friend's experience with the werewolf and the one that got abducted with them. So it's just so much high strangeness. That's why I love having these two as a guest. They're the epitome of what Paranormal Soup is. Now, if you want to call into the show to ask them some questions tonight, or tell us about your experiences that might be similar to theirs. Have you seen, for instance, somebody Vogue shapeshift into a werewolf? I believe these things are real. You can call in on Skype IDs OOJBland00. That's OOJBland00, JBLAND, OOJBLAND, 00. Or you can call in on the video Skype line at Soup Live Chat 800 Live Chat. That's Soup Live Chat 800 Live Chat. All right, guys, we'll be right with you in just a sec. All right, Chad and Alta, you still there with us?
We're here.
Awesome. Thank you guys for hanging in there. And we're going to get to now. So you guys woke up. You had, for 2 days didn't know where your friend was, and you find out her end of the deal, what happened to her. So go ahead and go into, what was her experience after coming to or waking up with all the missing time.
So she says that she remembers the same as Chad and I remember, around 11 o'clock on that corner. And then she said the next thing she knows. Now, I've always found this interesting and never really had much time to ever discuss it or banner it about in the conversation. But it's interesting because he's the little blonde guy that was in front of that club is never mentioned again. She never mentioned him again. And in Chad's regression, he's never mentioned him as well. So, just kind of an interesting point. She said that the next thing she knows, it's somewhere between 3 and 4 in the morning. She's now behind the steering wheel of her moving car, and it's moving slowly, and it hits a parked car, and it knocks off her rear view mirror, which is what she says jolts her too. Excuse me. She indicates that the car, certainly the way I take it, the way she's describing it, it's as if this car is driving itself. And she's coming to get control, I believe, of herself more so than this car.
Well, it's like somebody put her in a car and left it in drive, and she wakes up while it's just rolling along.
Well, again, the other point of this, before we move on any further, is that she and this car in a whole different section of the city from where she parked that car that morning, like miles away from where she knew that she had parked the car up the street from our shop. She's now outside of the quarter. This is a whole nother section of the city, not the French Quarter.
Right.
And so, how does that car get there? And so anyhow, this section of the city that she's in happens to be with cars parked, and she hits a car, as I said, knocks off her rearview mirror and jolts her too. She ends up in and I call it the hood, of where Wolfie Boy lives. Now, knowing her as well as we know her and understanding her when she's describing this to us, and me in particular, there's no way she's ever going to see Wolfie Boy again.
Right. Not after
on
seeing
a good
him turn
day.
into a wolf. Yeah.
Yeah. On a good day, no. And so to be in his neighborhood is just creepy just in itself.
Right.
Apparently it's not a real nice neighborhood. And if I understood correctly, he lives in a big old house that's been converted into maybe like a fourplex. He's got the downstairs apartment. When she drives up, now keep in mind, again, we're talking not a good time in the morning for this chick to be running around in this neighborhood.
4 a.m., right?
All by herself. Right. Somewhere in that time frame. This property apparently has got a great big fence, big metal fence all the way around it that normally has a locked gate.
Right.
But, of course, not this morning. The gate's open. And she goes upstairs, up the porch, and he's inside the front door. The door is open, so there's either a screen or it's just wide open.
Right.
She says she sees him sitting under like an overhead light, and he's playing guitar. She said that he stops playing guitar, and he looks at her, and he says, either I've been or we've been waiting for you.
Oh, that's not what you want to hear. Not what you want to hear.
I'm getting creeped out just repeating it.
Yeah, I mean, the gate's open, the door's open. It's all like, right there for her to, come right in.
Come on in, Christine.
And yeah, and she does, which is so not her. I mean, that's just not her.
In a stupor.
But she does. And she said that apparently she walks up to him and he puts the guitar down and she starts to become extremely emotional. I preface this because I'm the crybaby of the family. She's not a crier. And she starts crying, sounds like almost uncontrollably. Like she's going into like a controlled hysteria.
Right.
She said he walks her into a room and lays her down. She said she cries herself to sleep. And then, just again guesstimating, because she said the sun looks like it's just starting to come up.
Right.
She wakes up and she said she's completely dressed. It doesn't appear that he has done anything to her. And she says she gets up and she gets the F out of there and doesn't look back.
You can imagine.
That is her account of this
What was the last
experience.
thing
And
she
as,
remembered, though? If I missed that, like, was it just talking to that guy in front of the bar? Was that the last thing she remembered?
right, the last thing she remembers is being in front of that picture that's, the cover of the book, being right in front of that door, talking to him. That's the last thing she remembers as well. Until it's, like I said, all those hours later, and her car is miles away. Chad, do you have any idea the distance?
Not
Can you guesstimate?
3, 4, 5, 6, miles away. Again, a different part of the city. There's a
Right.
lot of turns and twists.
Like,
and
who was driving the car,
Yeah, I'm thinking it's like around Central City, New Orleans, and of course New Orleans, and then she was in the French Quarter. So
Right.
Just again, adding along all the mystery to all the mystery. That is her last experience, if you will, involving us and her life together. If I might add, though, one more high strangeness involving her in our lives, several years later, without jumping around too much, several years later, due to circumstances of our job, hers and mine, we all three end up in Denver, Colorado. Now it's about 1999 or 2000. Chad and I have moved there first. We have rented a great big, huge, old Victorian home, and it had a great big basement, built-in, basement. We live in New Orleans now, and there's no such thing as anything underground
Right,
here
no,
because
not
we
New
are
Orleans.
underground. I mean, we're sinking in New Orleans, so
Right.
they don't build basements.
No.
So we've got this huge basement in this over 100-year-old, beautiful, big home. She's going to relocate to Denver, again, due to our job. She has a boyfriend, and she has a child now that's turning a year old. All the little family are going to relocate to Denver as well. When they get there, they're going to all stay with us until they find a home that she's either wants to rent or buy, because we've got lots of room. The first night that they stay in our home, we're all just happy to see each other. We've been separated for a year or so. We're playing fast catch up, and we just have the most wonderful night. I've had in the last couple of years, my mother had died. I had a huge inheritance, Native American inheritance of the culture that I'm raised of, as well as, just my inheritance in general, a lot of things. We had all of it stored downstairs in that basement. The next morning, after the first night they stay in the house with us, Chad and her boyfriend and the baby, they all leave to go look at the new shop that's being built that we're going to open up in Denver. She and I stay behind. We're just going to have a girls' morning, and we're playing catch-up again. We're having coffee, and she's curious about the inheritance. And so I take her downstairs to show her some of the things that I have down there. When we get down, when we open up the door, just like a scary movie, it's dark down there. There's a light switch. I flip the switch on. We start down those stairs. We get pretty close, down those stairs where we can see. And what we can see is that basement is full of water. It's full of water. Now, I won't carry on much longer about this story, but the owner of this house, this had been in her family for over 100 years. She's on the city council for Denver. That means this woman's got clout. She contacts city water people, everybody she can contact to try to figure out what the hay is going on in this house, because my inheritance is destroyed.
Yeah,
Right,
we
that's
were
awful.
just a few like a block from Mile High Stadium. So, it's not like, we were in a flood zone.
Right. I've
And
had
so,
a flooded basement.
just
It's
to
the worst. It's the worst.
Oh, the worst.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what the worst is. Chad and I, being very conscious at the time, had renter's insurance because I had a small fortune in inheritance.
Mm-hmm.
And we had taken out renter's insurance. And so the bottom line on this story is they could never find an origin of this water. Now, we're not talking about a couple of inches. I'm talking feet of water in the bottom of this basement. Never could find the origin of this water, which means the renter's insurance would not cover my loss. So we chalked that up to, holy moly, what the hey is going on here? Because at this, this far into the game, I'm very aware there's something else clearly going on.
You think there was something in your mother's inheritance that there was
relationship?
Do you think that though, with your mother's inheritance, that something was trying to be hid from you by destroying it in the flood? That something was in that basement?
Again, a really interesting thought that I will also tell you, since I'm outing myself here with this craziness, but again, associated again around her.
Right, because it happened when she showed up.
She, one day, I'm sitting in the house by myself, and I was really down. I was grieving the loss of my mom, and I was just grieving. I was lost, and I just was having a very down day. I pulled out a cardboard box of photos that were loose and just had been thrown in this box. And it was kind of my life from my childhood forward. So I knew those pictures, like I'm sure, Jason, you know your pictures. Mm-hmm. I understand you have children, wife, you know your photos. I know my photos. Well, on this day, there's 2 new things in my box of photos that had never been there before. One of them was a photo of my mother that I had never seen before. She looks like a movie star. Beautiful. Unbelievably beautiful to me. I'm like, what in the world? It looked like it was out of the 50s and a black and white, and I'd never seen the photo before. And then there was another very strange document that had never been in the box before either. And it was a birth announcement, but it didn't have my name. Now, I understand I'm an only child. It had my mother's name and it had my birth father's name, and I'm named after my birth father. But that's not the name that was on this birth announcement. And so all of a sudden, again, I have another huge mystery being handed to me with a photo of my mother. And then a basement being flooded with water that nobody can determine where it's come from. And again, a lot of loss and more high strangeness.
Yeah.
Just, again, mystery.
The birth announcement had Alta's birth date on it, but it didn't say Alta on it. It was another very strange name.
What was the name?
The name is Pandora.
So
exactly.
Do you think your mom originally had that name and just changed it to Alta?
Well, the birth announcement was in a tiny envelope. It was my mother's handwriting. My mother had beautiful handwriting. I knew her writing well. It had been postmarked. It had been sent to my birth father's sister and aunt that lived in California. Now, I'm born, I'm told, in Arizona. This had been sent to my aunt.
May I interrupt? Has your birthday on it?
As my birthday.
Is it possible you had a twin?
Ooh, never even thought about that.
Again, it's never been spoken of. Never been. Nothing like this has ever been indicated in my life, ever. I met my birth father when I was 27. Never. This name had never been ever used or mentioned, or nobody ever slipped in the you know what I'm saying? Right. I mean, this was a complete mystery I met my birth father at 27. This birth announcement shows up in a box of photos along with this mystery picture of my mother in
So
when
fascinating.
I'm 40 something years old. So it was so many years later, and
I would say,
I mean, again, it's just more mystery.
if it was a twin, I think it would have both Pandora and Alta born. You know, it would be a birth announcement for both of you, probably.
Yeah, that's kind of what popped into my head.
And the postmark on this envelope is the day after my birth.
Now,
So-
has that name Pandora? Does that have any significance to you at all? I mean,
Never.
never heard it
Never.
before.
I've never had an interest in mythology. So, you know, I have a passing understanding of some of it, just a little bit from hearing it over my lifetime through other people talking about the word or people who have interest in mythology. I never have had. So I wasn't even quite sure what it was. And
Well, in a way,
Chad,
it's like opening Pandora's box. I mean, you just came up with all these new questions now. That's
That is literally Pandora's
really,
box.
really fascinating.
and you know, thank you so much for taking note of that and hearing me, because this is not part of the story that we've ever had. I believe I tried to write it, and I think all of this was edited out.
Right.
But,
You said a lot was edited out of the book.
Right.
Yeah, I think they just felt like they wanted to stick with kind of one of our stories
That was
stick
based
with
around the
main-
title.
You know, stick with the main story.
But if
And
I
then-
might just finish that portion
Yeah,
very quickly, because you took note of that. The fact is that this little birth announcement, when I pulled it out of the envelope, it was a 1950s little girl birth announcement with a little blonde girl, baby girl, popping out of a
Gift
Jack in the
box.
Box
A
or
gift
a gift
box.
box.
Like it's a little girl coming out of a box, and
And when you just said
Pandora,
that, it was like,
you know,
oh,
just
man.
coming out of the box.
Oh,
It's just
Pandora's
so
box, yeah.
crazy.
And I mean, you are like Pandora's box. Your whole life has like been one big question, you know, like a mystery. If you open it up
Yeah.
too much, you might not like
Wow.
the answers, you know.
Boy,
Yeah.
just too crazy. So that just kind of tails it off and tops it off with her portion of the experiences in our life in terms of the high strangeness. There is one last, if you're interested, on
Oh, of
Wolfie
course.
Boys.
Yes.
So again, finishing it up just to keep it again all in its order. The Wolfie Boy climax, if you will. Now, if you can, this happened to us in 97. Fast forward to 2001. Chad and I had left New Orleans via New Mexico, then up to Denver, and then back to New Orleans by 2000. It took us from 2000 to 2001, and as I refer to, we imploded. We became completely apart with each other, life. We were falling completely apart. He opted to leave and go to Alabama where his father lives. His mother lives there as well. They're not together, but they do live in the same small community. And his dad owns a business, and so Chad was going to go there and kind of get his life together and go to work for his dad. I chose to stay behind. So in the time, it didn't take very long of Chad leaving that at first I took a big breath and I thought I was relieved that this was over. And then I discovered it was far from that. I was grieving him. I was missing him beyond words. And I was also becoming very sick. Rather than do anything about that, I threw myself into work and I became more or less a workaholic. So that was making it much worse for me. I get out of work one afternoon. It was a beautiful afternoon. I don't remember humidity, which is highly unusual here. It was one of those kind of beautiful days. The streets seemed packed, which is the normal. I'm walking through the streets, just kind of in a daze, coming out of work and just taking in the air. And I hear somebody yell my name. When I see who's hollering at me across the crowd, this guy is a very tall, almost giant tall, like 7 foot tall, but he's very thin, so it makes him look even taller. And I say he's as close to an alien as anything I've ever seen. And he's a friend. He happens to be a traveling artist who Chad and I had met a few years earlier. When he was traveling through New Orleans, he'd hang out for a period of time. He'd work construction or what have you. but his, livelihood, his whole world is being an artist. Well, he's originally from Montauk, New York.
Oop,
At the
that's
time,
another
I didn't know, right, I didn't know nothing about a Montauk, New York, other than I'd heard of it throughout my life. I didn't know nothing.
one. Right.
As I often say, I know a lot about it now. And so I've discovered a lot of high strangeness concerning that area of the world. Well, this guy's name is Rich. He hollers at me. We get reunited. He says, let's get a drink. We sit down at one of the little outdoor cafes. He orders a Coke. I got a beer, I think. We're talking, and in the time we're talking about Chad and I falling apart, he seems extremely upset to hear this. Everybody did, because it's the furthest thing from the imagination that we would not be together. And so I'm kind of falling into the sadness as I'm repeating all this to him about us being separated. And I'm feeling I've got a good ear, to bend, because I need somebody to talk to. Well, I'll be damned if that's what I get for thinking about compassion, because next thing I know, he's rolling a cigarette, and all of a sudden he just shifts the conversation, just like I wasn't even talking about what I was talking about. And he says, hey, have you heard about Will? And I'm like,
ex-boyfriend.
I'm like just sitting there with my mouth hanging open, like, he didn't just say that. And I'm like, Will, Dark Boy? I didn't even know you knew Dark.
Yeah.
So here I am, it's puzzled, what have you, and we get around to why he brings it up. But I mean, that's weird in itself,
Right.
the way he shifted on me. And he says, he's gone around telling everybody he's got to catch a bus. He's got to get out of town because the aliens are after him. Now, this is the last of this Dark Boy story, the Wolfie Boy that I'm
Right.
aware of. But in the moment that this is happening to me, I'm no longer thinking sad. I'm no longer thinking paranormal, high strangeness. I'm not even missing Chad. I'm feeling really pissed. I feel like something is out there pointing and laughing at me. And I'm feeling like I'm on some really bad candid camera show.
Right.
And where are the cameras? I'm getting very angry because this is just so... He didn't just say that. He did not just say that. Well, he sure did. And then he's got to go. I mean, he hits me with this.
Yeah.
And then next thing I know, he stands up and he's got to go. And, he exits the stage. And there I am, just as puzzled as I am right now, just repeating it.
Well, I'm going to hold I'm going to hold you in that part of the story for just a minute, because we do have a caller into the show. We got Zach,
Awesome.
We got Zachary on the line. I believe he called in last time, and you guys were on. He always has really good questions. How you doing tonight, Zach?
Awesome.
I'm doing pretty good. Jason, how you doing, man?
Doing really good. You had you had a birthday recently, didn't you? Was it you?
Me?
Yeah.
No,
That
not
was
me.
you.
No.
I would turn one of my. I thought it was you. Sorry, I was gonna say my wife did too. But I knew one of my watchers of the show had a birthday recently. Well, I was gonna say happy birthday, but I guess I'm way late or too early. All right, Zach. We always have good questions. What do you got for them tonight?
Alta, Chad, is so good to talk to you guys again. I have to go back to the Wolfman account that you told us. My question is, for this gentleman who your friend described as turning into a wolf, do you believe, in your own opinion, that this gentleman just literally transformed into a wolf right there? Or do you believe that it was some kind of a manifestation of some kind of repressed characteristic that this gentleman had, like anger, depression? What would be your take on that?
Well, first of all, it's so good to hear you again. Thanks so much for hearing us and being interested, and happy birthday whenever it is. Ultimately, I believe her, and she is so black and white kind of female that she saw a wolf. Now, that's what she saw. Everything happening very fast, but she saw a wolf not once, but she saw a wolf twice. But now, I'd like for Chad to insert also what he's aware of, what we discovered about Wolfie Boy, his family
we had
heritage.
found out that he is, actually from Louisiana, born and bred, and apparently his mom and maybe grandmother, but was what they referred to down here as the swamp witch, and there's also what they call down here the Rougarou.
Oh yeah.
So, and matter of fact, they're getting ready to have the Rougarou Festival here in like a week or so. But yeah, it's so that you have that lure, and then him, so who's to say? I do believe when she said he turned into a effing wolf, that she saw physically at least his face, transformed into
An effing wolf.
Yeah. Do you have another question, Zach?
Yeah, I do have a second question. Based on your experiences, would you describe them as extraterrestrial, interdimensional, or both? Why or why not?
Well, they didn't tell me, where they were from or who they were, or that I can remember anyway. They didn't tell me, so I have no idea. I've thought of many different ways. In the beginning, it was like, was this something that was just planted into my head? But yeah, they didn't tell me, so I don't know if it could be all the same.
Right.
So it's just really, I don't have much of an answer, I guess. But
in my experience, I don't believe I've even accounted for my experience yet, but just to offer for that question, there are times that with all of this time to reflect on all of this, in my memory, because I'm the only one out of the three that would appear to have had what I call memory of the in-between. And in my memory, I have no idea if I'm in the distant past, the distant future, or of this planet, or am I on another planet? Or is this all a program? And this is a movie.
A Matrix.
That is the term that's used often. My brain has become so expanded and continues to expand on a constant basis that, I'm at the point where everybody else is using this common language I never have.
Right.
Such as the object in my upper arm. Everyone is calling an implant and has from the very beginning, and I have refused the language, and I think people think I'm combative about it. I'm not at all. It is just my truth, and my truth tells me that this object in my upper arm is an unknown, because I don't have any memory of it being implanted. In my memory of my experience, I have no memory of this object being implanted in my arm. So I always try to get people to expand their minds like I've been forced to do, because it's a lot more interesting, I assure you. And the idea is let's say that it didn't come with the package. Well, I don't know that on this particular night, and whatever really happened to us, that it wasn't ignited or wasn't brought forward or had been laying dormant. These things
Right.
I have no idea.
You could have had it since your childhood, and they were just checking up on the implant. Who knows? Hey, Zach, I'm going to let you go. Thank you for calling with the great questions. You always do.
All right, thank you so much, guys, for answering my questions. I greatly appreciate it, and I cannot wait to hear the rest of your story. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night, Zach.
And thank you.
I'm getting weird noise. I don't know if that was coming from Zach or not.
I'm hearing that too, like a weird growl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it was like.
Yeah, I've been wondering about that.
What did you want to get into?
I thought you had sound effects.
Yeah, it wasn't me. No sound. I do have sound effects, but they're usually getting shenanigan like laughery sound effects.
And
usually.
I've been muted.
I do want to get in because we're going to run out of time. So, where did the regression therapy come into this, and what was learned from that?
Well, Now, Chad's had regression. I paid somebody a lot of money to get regressed for what I didn't remember, and that didn't work. The woman that I was to have this experience with, her and I didn't seem to sit well with each other from the very beginning, so it just did not work. Although I did have a very bizarre experience from it. So for people who don't like regression or they question all of that, good for them, because I question all of it as well. But I would like you to know that,
it is a tool.
I'm sorry?
I said there's good reason to question it. A lot of people have, like, are people being influenced by
Yes.
the therapist? You do have to ask those questions. But it
Yes.
is a tool for because what else are you going to do when you have missing time? How are you going to know what happened to you?
That, again, no book of rules.
Yeah.
Nobody has given us instructions. But I'd like to add, if I might, because I find it hysterical, and I'm the one that's gone through all the trauma, and it's, cost Chad and I a lot of money. But again, for anybody who's hearing this about regression, even though it didn't work for me, at the end of before I actually went through trying to get regress, the woman, she's in a hotel suite. She tells me to use the bathroom prior, because they don't want to stop once you get started in the regression. So I don't have to go to the bathroom, but I'm very submissive because I want to make this work. So I go in the bathroom like a little 3-year-old, and I force myself to TT just as hard as I can.
Sorry.
And, a couple drips. And I'm being so specific about this because of what happened. I use a piece of toilet paper off of a brand new roll that's on her hotel suite wall next to the toilet. I go over to the sink, turn on the faucet. Takes me a half a second to wash my little fingers off because, I've been in there for a second. This woman is waiting in the doorway practically. The moment I open up the door, and I'm not a little girl. I'm kind of a big girl, and she's bigger than I am. So here our girls are meeting each other as we're going through the threshold of this door. Now, I say all of that to you so you can take note of what I'm about to tell you happened. In the time it took us to cross each other in the doorway of that bathroom, I'd only had a chance to take a few steps away, and I hear this woman in the most evil voice order me back in that bathroom. Now, all of a sudden, I'm about to be spanked. That's what I feel like, and I become very childlike because I'm just like, what is going on? I go back to the bathroom door, and that woman is pointing. She's got her arm extended with her index finger pointing as hard as she can. Every bit of that brand new roll of toilet paper that was on the wall next to the toilet is now in a huge mound, like stacked in a mound, a few inches in front of the toilet, on the floor. Now, somebody explain to me.
I can't.
I'm telling you.
That's some weird high strangeness in the bathroom. I wouldn't have been trusting that hypnotherapist after that. No wonder you probably couldn't go under because I think you'd be trying to I can't close both eyes. I got to keep one eye on you, lady, because you're weird.
Oh yeah, and I was out of there.
Yeah.
It didn't work, and I got myself together, and we got out of there. And this is this individual is a world-renowned individual.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about. That's the whole point. Is that it doesn't matter how big your name is in this field. If it don't work, it don't work. But something out there, as I said, is pointing and laughing. There is no question about it. When these questions are asked about what do we think, holy moly, what do you do with what we've been dealt?
Right. Well, with Chad, it might have worked. For Chad, your experience with regression is quite incredible. What you saw in that, and you give a little description of what you were able to recall with it.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, my memory of the night was the same as Alta. Every place we went, ending up on that stoop about 11 o'clock, and Alta telling me, I just want to go home. What comes out in my regression is we're standing there at the stoop. Our friend Christine had already come down to join us, and I noticed this bright light coming from like around the corner and through the windows of the corner next, the other corner, which is Decatur and Frenchman. So it's like Checkpoint Charlie's is on one corner. This other place, this was the other corner, kind of around the right-hand side of Checkpoint Charlie's. I get the girl's attention. We walk around the corner, and we see this orb. And it's about 12 foot in diameter. It's about 15 foot off the ground. It's about halfway down the block. And it's just beautiful. It's this bright, white, clean, beautiful light. It comes towards us and just kind of engulfs us. It Orbducts us. It just pulls us into it.
Were you guys like paralyzed as it's coming at you, kind of like couldn't move?
Yeah, it just happened so fast.
Right.
It was just, there was no time to react or anything.
Gotcha.
And I don't, I don't remember like a swooshing or anything like that. My next memory is I'm walking down this corridor. It's kind of gently turning to the right. I'm walking. The walls are metallic, very, clean, no rivets, no bolts. I'm following this little being, and he's probably about 3.5, 4 foot tall. He's got a big bulbous head, but he's not like the grays that you see on TV. He kind of waddles when he walks. He's got substance. Later on, I'm in another room, and it just seems infinite. Just huge. It's very dark. I end up seeing there's this blue beam. And he goes over and he picks up this box, and he has it in his right hand. He takes his left hand and puts it inside of the box. And when he brings his hand out, there's this substance kind of free floating above it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of clear but blue, the same color as he is. Now his presence, his aura, is that of like a shaman / teacher, scientist, healer. It's like the science and the healing arts just together, beyond knowledge. So he's got this substance above his left hand, kind of free floating. He takes his right hand, and he's only got 4 digits. So he takes his 2 middle fingers and puts them up in almost like a peace sign, and his other 2 outer fingers folded in. And when he does this substance starts spinning. And the faster it spun, the blueness and the sparkly, the glittery kind of stuff inside it kind of dissipate out of it and kind of rotating around it, orbiting around it. And it kind of starts slowing down, and once it was just kind of barely turning, I could tell that it had turned into this little double-pointed pyramid-shaped crystal. Very clean, very clear. I remember thinking to him, why are you showing this to me? I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, I'm not an engineer. Why are you showing this to me? And he told me that I would know in time, or when it's time. My next memory is I'm in this other room. This room only has 3 walls. It's like 2 that are very straight and then 1 that's kind of concave. And there's this overstuffed leather chair in the middle of the room. Just thought it was just out of place. Never sat in it. I focused my attention to the wall that's kind of concave. And I walk a little closer, and what I saw, what I thought was a solid wall. Because there was no rivets, no bolts. There's this gunmetal kind of color. I get over close to this wall, and I could see through it. It was transparent. And I could see stars, and it was like I was out in the galaxy.
Or like you're looking out the spaceship window.
Yeah, just like, looking out into space, from
that'd be awesome.
out in space. And I'm kind of standing there in awe. And about that time, this craft right outside the wall, right outside this window wall, just kind of shoots past me, pretty fast. And it gets about, 8, 9, 10 foot past me, and it stops. And it comes back, almost like doing a double take. And it was setting, just right outside. We were eye to eye, kind of. And it's kind of a rugby shape, football shaped, about 3 foot long, 2 foot at the widest. It had little antennas and metal things shifting around on it and moving around on it, little lights blinking, all around it. I could feel intelligence coming out of it. And it sat there for, maybe 30 seconds at the most, probably. But, it sat there for a while, just like, look at the monkey in the cage is what I got, was getting back out of it. It was like, I've never seen one of them before in real life, or whatever, It's
not cool when you're the monkey in the cage.
Yeah. And it shoots off in the same direction it was going in and just takes off. And again, my next memory is waking up in bed the next morning.
That to think that was all hidden in your mind, that you didn't get to remember that until you had the regression therapy. That was all hidden, that experience. Now, Alta, we don't have a lot of time left, but your memory, what are the things you could share with us about your memory that you weren't able to regress, but you had a memory you held on to from when you came to?
Exactly. So the blonde female that's on the back of the book, she's, of course, the artist rendition of what I've given my very best to try to describe as 1 minute I'm on that stoop, and the next thing I know, I am standing on the edge of a crater. I look like I'm in my best description to kind of give you all a visual is I look like I'm in a black and white movie of the so-called moon landings. That's the environment. That's what it looks like around me. I'm looking down in this crater. I mean, I'm literally, my toes are over the edge of it. And it's, by perspective, I giggle when I think about it. I don't know what a big crater is, but it looks like a big crater to me. And it looks pretty deep down there. And there's a metallic structure at the bottom of it. It's rectangle shaped. It's warehouse looking. Could be craft. Could be warehouse. Not sure at all. But it's the only thing of any kind of color in the sense that it's metallic. There's no movement down in the bottom of the crater at all. There's nothing moving of any kind. So I bring my attention back up. The crater is surrounded in what appear to be small white orbs that seem to be the lighting source. They are the size of, my guesstimation, two big watermelons put together. White orbs all the way around the perimeter of this crater. As years have passed, in the beginning, because I couldn't cope with any of this, I certainly thought these were lights on some kind of structures. But there's no structures. They seem to be there all on their own.
Floating.
Hovering, right. And they feel intelligent. I don't know if I'm creating that, but that's what the memory says to me. This part of it, I wish I never had to repeat, and I'll do it very quickly because it's embarrassing. I'm aware that there is something behind me. So I don't completely turn around. I just kind of pivot around. And several feet behind me is what I call a dog pile of a few what look like humans. Different ages, male, female. I think there's a child. I think, 2, 3. I don't have much time to study this. Right. They're all dressed. Nobody seems upset, but they seem like they're in suspended animation. Now, the upsetting part about this to me is I'm a caregiver. If you're down, I want to help you.
Right.
And you think I'd be moving towards this? No, because before I can do anything other than take that view in, now I'm aware there's something right next to me. So as quickly as I can get this said to you is what I'm experiencing, I pivot back around, and it's her. It's that blonde female.
Right.
But there's no words and there's no pictures that I can ever manifest to describe her. I had no idea until I'm having this experience. She, in that moment, is my vision and version of perfection. She's over 6 feet tall. Body is an absolute perfect proportion to height. Long blonde hair, well past the shoulders. A bodysuit that's like a skin diver kind of suit.
Right.
She is communicating with me telepathically. What I'm so in awe of is not only her physical, because that's just perfect, but it's what's coming out of her. It's that energy that I'm sensing out of her is just, I'm just too happy beyond words. I'm beyond words happy. And I often say it's like if I had a tail, it was wagging off because I was so joyous to be with her. I also feel without any hesitation that I'm home. I'm in a state of complete comfort. I'm not thinking nothing about Chad, life, here, nothing. I'm home. As I'm falling into that grace, that state of grace, I now look up above her. My head goes back further. I'm now up in the sky. It's a beautiful black sky, and it's covered in, as I think you used the term earlier, cheesy as it might sound, it looks like diamonds. Diamonds in the sky. These stars are so beautiful. Well, better than any kind of drug I could ever imagine or any kind of alcohol. I want up in there. I just want to go up in it. And so as I'm just in this state of home, all of a sudden one of those stars started moving. The moment it started to move, I started to change from being in a state of bliss to a state of terror. As ridiculous as that might sound, that's what I was going through. My heart starts racing like it's going to race out of my chest. I become so afraid because others now are joining that one star. Now they're all getting in on the dance. Well, instead of it being beautiful as I describe it right now, I am scared witless. Because if there's such a thing as logic, it's popping in right at that moment saying, they can't do that. So as I'm moving into that state of terror, fear, she speaks to me telepathically. And again, it's as beautiful as she is. Mm-hmm. The tone, the sound, there's no duplication. But she uses English, and she calls me by name. And she says, Alta, don't be afraid. They're just scanning you. Now, that was the last thing that I remember experiencing were those words. And then the next thing I know, my eyes are popping open and I'm sitting straight up in my living room, rubbing my arm with this something in my upper arm. Now, I mentioned earlier, Chad discovered when Chad and I first saw each other, and we're going through this state of complete all kinds of emotions, whatever you can imagine. He walks around me as I'm pointing at my arm saying, I got something in my arm, Chad, what the? And as he's walking around me, he sees that I've got strange handprints, what appear to be handprints on the tops of both of my upper arms, as if something had held me or grabbed me from behind.
Right.
The handprints are, we'll check.
Yeah, they were 4-digit and very long fingers. Whatever held her up or held her from behind, or.
And these bruises or whatever this was, they only lasted a day or so. And of course, I don't blame anybody for their questions. We love questions, but it's often always been asked about pictures. And I just assure you, that was the last thing on anybody's mind at this stage. Because at this moment now, where is our friend?
Yeah. Well, you guys, we could keep going all night on this. I wish we could, because there's just so much. People, I definitely suggest, where can people, really quick before we get out, find your book?
Well, you can find us on Etsy. You can also find us on Facebook. You can just Google or do the Facebook Orbducted in the French Quarter. If you're in the French Quarter, you can always come by where Alta works at Earth Odyssey. They carry the book. And also next Thursday, we're going to be doing our first book signing at a very wonderful, charming, beautiful gallery on the 800 block of Royal Street called Gallery 2. They also do some really cool UFO art and alien art. It's just really great shop. They had heard us on another interview. So
that happens to be in the French Quarter also. Yeah. So please come.
What's the date on that, you said?
That's the 19th.
The 19th.
So
next Thursday.
Anybody listening or watching, there you go. You can meet them in person. Ask more questions. Well, thank you guys so much for being on, and I really enjoyed the book. Thank you so much for giving me a copy of it. I'd love to have you guys again, part 3, because there's just so much to your guys' story, so many high strangeness. Just it's nobody would just make most people that if they were to make up something like this would probably stick to the cues of alien abduction. What they see in Hollywood or the stories. Your story is not something anybody could just make up. It's so many weird synchronicities in it. Well, thank you guys. And
again, thank you so much for having us, and it's been so much fun.
Well, thank you. And like I said, we'll have to do it again sometime. All right, guys, next week we are going to be back with Lori Johnson. We were supposed to have her on a few weeks ago, and she was sick. I was sick then. I'm still sick again, trying to get over that, and a little hungover. Sorry, guys. Had a wedding last night. But Lori Johnson will be back with us next weekend, same bat time, same bat channel, and we'll have the phone lines open. There'll be the Skype lines open for you guys. The Soup live chat, 800 live chat, or the OJ Bland 00 to call in to see if Lori Johnson, you do get one question to ask her, and she can give you her intuition, her psychic intuition on it. But just one question per caller that night. Hear that, Zach? One question. So you can call in and ask her. We'll spend a lot of the show with that. We'll talk a little bit about a ghost of Shepherdstown, but really want to focus on her life and experiences as a medium. All right, guys, thanks for joining us on this show. See us next week on Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup's Facebook page, or listen to us on Late Night in the Midlands Radio Network. Have a great night. See you next time.